Back in February of this year, I reviewed the Halcyon 830 bar end mirrors, but these weren't actually my first choice. Now I'm taking a trip down memory lane again as I go back to that first new motorcycle that I bought back in 1983. It wasn't my first bike, but it was my first new bike, and it was a Suzuki GS125 ES in blue. Now I'd just started my first full-time job and I was a bit flush, mainly because I'd just taken out a big bank loan. I say big, it was for £1,200. And after I'd worked out a deal with the bike shop, I had a bit of money left over, so I decided that I would quite like to fit the Suzuki Equip full fairing to the bike. Now this was one of your old-fashioned bike shops, the type that are basically would just like any other corner shop, except they'd somehow managed to cram dozens of bike onto this small shop floor. And when you first went in, it felt like you needed a map to work out a route through the bikes from the front door to the actual counter. The shop was actually due for demolition and the dealership was looking for new premises, or they'd sought some new premises not too far away. And they were actually in the process of packing everything up ready for the move in a few weeks' time. Now when I picked the bike up a week or so later, the salesman handed me a carrier bag, and inside that carrier bag were the two stem type handlebar mirrors. And he explained that because of the design of the screen on the bike, you couldn't actually turn the steering from lock to lock because the mirrors fouled the screen, so they'd had to take them off. Now obviously I wasn't best pleased about this, and the workshop manager suggested that what I needed was a pair of bar end mirrors. Now looking back, I don't think I actually knew what bar end mirrors were at the time, but he did explain to me that nobody really made them anymore, but he would have a look and see what he could find. Now a couple of weeks later, when I brought the bike in for its first service, the service manager, who I remember really well and I got on with him really well, he always wore one of those brown workshop coats and a flat cap and a pair of round spectacles. He walked towards me excitedly holding a large brown paper bag and handed it to me. Inside that paper bag was a pair of brand new old stock stadium bar end mirrors, the rectangular type. And he explained to me that while they were sorting out one of the storerooms where all the old stock had been put that hadn't sold in previous years, he'd come across a few sets of these and a few sets of the round type, but he decided that the rectangular type would suit my bike better because they look more modern. And these mirrors were actually what are now called the Halcyon 820 mirrors. Now I wasn't entirely convinced by the look of these mirrors, but beggars can't be choosers, and I did need a pair of mirrors for my bike. Now the ticket price for them was something like 2 shillings and sixpence, so they'd obviously been languishing in that storeroom for 20 years plus. And I think in the end we agreed to something like £14 or £15 for the pair. They fitted my bike okay and they did the job. And as the years went on, I fell in love with those mirrors. The large rectangular shape gave an excellent rearward view of the like I've never seen with any other rear view mirror since. And although in those days they were a mild steel construction which was chrome plated, they stood up to the elements, bearing in mind I used this bike in all weathers, rain, shine, sleet or snow. And I remember not long after I fitted them watching this really old movie on TV from back in the 1960s. Now I don't know which movie it was, and I'm not entirely sure now which was the A-list female movie star that featured in it. It was someone like Jane Fonda or Brigitte Bardot. And there was this scene where she was reapplying some makeup in a motorcycle mirror, and it was the exact same mirror that I had fitted to my bike. And I remember thinking at the time, those mirrors are a piece of motorcycling history. In fact, recently I looked into these mirrors, and truth be told, there's not an awful lot of information out there about them, but these were first offered for sale, as far as can be told, back in 1934. And I'm pretty sure that must make these the oldest motorcycle accessory that's been in continual production. Now after a few years I sold the bike on and the mirrors went with it, and I remember about 15 years later spotting that bike in a supermarket car park. The bike itself was absolutely hammered. It was rusty, the bottom half of the fairing was missing, the paintwork was scratched and the screen had split. But one thing that really stood out about the bike was that those bar end mirrors that I'd fitted all those years before still looked like they were brand new. Now the current 820s, although they are exactly the same design and even use the same castings as those originals back from the 30s, are now made completely from stainless steel, and they're not 14 or 15 pounds a pair anymore. But what they are is a motorcycling icon, just like the Triumph Bonneville or the Royal Enfield Bullet. And although at first I thought I may have been remembering these mirrors through rose-coloured spectacles, it soon became apparent that I wasn't. They are every bit as good as I remember them. The 830 bar end mirrors that I tested a few months ago were good. In fact, they were very good. But these surpass even those. And if anything, the extensive rear view vision that they give you at first can be a little bit distracting until you get used to them, because they seem to offer an almost 180 degrees rearward view once you've got the angles adjusted properly. Now I know the standard interpretation of a classic mirror these days are small and round construction, but these mirrors are a genuine classic, and they're exactly as they were back in the 1930s when they first came into production. In fact, Stadium only changed from this rectangular design to the round design sometime in the mid-60s. Now which mirrors you choose is up to you, whether you prefer the classic round shape of the 830s or whether you like this rectangular shape in the 820. That's all down to personal preference, and that's up to you. But one practical ability that these mirrors do have over the 830s is that longer mirror surface means that you can angle the mirror further in so it doesn't stick out beyond your handlebars quite as far, without compromising your rearward vision. Now the extra 2 or 3 inches that saves can make the difference for people that filter a lot. And it's certainly a little bit more practical when it comes to putting the bike away if it's kept in a tight space. But really that is just a moot point, because just as with the 830 mirrors, they can be folded in with relative ease and convenience. Now these share a lot of common components with the 830 mirror, and as with the 830 mirror you will need some sort of adapter depending on what model bike you have. And I will leave a link for the adapter required to fit it to the new T120. Now the recommended retail price of these now is around £46, although that price does fluctuate a little with Halcyon, who frequently offer special deals. And again, I will leave a link to their product page for these mirrors from Halcyon's website in the video description. Once again, I hope you found this video useful and you've enjoyed watching it. Thanks for watching it. And as always, I'll see you next week.